Hey, what's up, everybody? We got a double feature reaction for you today. So this time we're going to be diving into two Necrit videos. This is going to be about the story of League, like the history, the whole world of Runeterra. I've dove into like a lot of like just the world building, like where places are, where characters kind of are. And I've gotten a lot of specific character stories, or like, we've reacted to some of the voice lines that have given us more, insight into the certain characters and kind of like, maybe like what Ionia represents, what Noxus represents, what Demacia represents, right? Like they don't like mages and stuff like that. But I don't actually know how like Runeterra was created, things like that, what major battles occurred. So these two Necrit videos that we're going to be reacting to are going to do that. So the first one is going to be Story of League of Legends Explained, and then the next one is the timeline video. So we got two videos here. It's going to be a little bit of longer reaction, so if you want to stick around for that, that'd be awesome. If you like the video, please leave a like. That'd be awesome. It helps other people see the reactions, as well as subscribe. If you like the other reactions that you've seen on the channel, you might as well subscribe so you can get access to the other ones a lot easier. And I'll see you guys in the reaction. All right, everybody, let's get into Story of League of Legends Explained. Now, this video is about 3 years old, so there's probably more info that's released, and some things may be a little outdated.
The questions I get asked are, is the lore of League of Legends good?
Yeah.
To which I say that we have a lore channel with over 500 videos now. I
There's
wouldn't
your
be
answer.
doing this if I didn't like the story.
Yeah.
And I want to read the story, but I don't know where to start. And that is a very hard question to answer, because quite frankly, you can start anywhere you want.
I kind of
All
did
Riot's
with
stories
cinematics.
Are written in a way where no matter
Oh,
what
here's all the
story you
short
read,
stories
all of
and
the information you need to
comics.
understand it is somehow put in there.
Oh,
For
that's
example,
cool.
if you are interested in Ionia, you can read about any champion in any order you want. But some characters talk about certain events more than others. Some champions, like Riven or Master Yi, explain the Noxian chemical warfare, but they still at least mention the main battle at the Placidium.
I forgot about
Other
that.
champions, like Irelia or Karma, explain the main battle at the Placidium, but they only hint at the chemical warfare. So basically, all the stories contain all the information you need, so you are never left confused. But I understand that simply telling you that you can read whatever you want is not a good answer. After all, League of Legends does have its main storyline. Despite there being more than 145 champions, all with their own unique stories,
145, so how many is there now?
Plotline that serves as the real story.
Because that number's got to be old.
And today, we will talk about exactly that. It wasn't an easy task, but I managed to put together the complete story of the main events that affected the universe of League of Legends.
Oh, cool.
The way I did it was simple. I read a lot. All the information you're about to hear can be found.
So we're gonna get like a chronological order. You guys recommended, some of you recommended when I saw the timeline in one of my other reactions, that I should like see the major events probably from this video.
Get a lot of new hidden information by cross-referencing different champions.
So I think this will help me understand some of those events a little more.
From the other side of the world, pointing at different mysteries. But when you realize that they
Who's
are
that on the
actually
right?
pointing at the same thing,
I control
you
shadows. I
discover
am the
something massive.
shadows.
So with all of that said, keep in mind that the story of Runeterra
There's a bunch of short stories. I wish, are there physical copies of these comic books or these comics? Because I would love to have physical copies. That'd be kind of cool, like a cool collectible.
I would say that about 15% of this video is sourced from those tiny pieces of information.
Okay.
However, what I'm about to show you right now is still the closest thing we can get to covering the entire storyline of League of Legends.
Okay.
But enough about unnecessary explanations. Finally, without further ado, let's get into the main storyline of
Awesome,
League of
I'm
Legends.
excited. I need to learn all of the big
very,
events
very
in this
In the
story.
ages before time was even a concept, there was nothing. Or at least that's what the things inside the nothing thought.
Okay.
You see, since the beginning of time, there were always the Watchers. They are these
Watchers.
nightmarish shapeless creatures that drifted in the absolute darkness of the universe. The
I'm
thing
already
is that
learning
the
something
universe
new.
was so dark and empty. The Watchers themselves didn't even know they existed. There was nothing to see and nothing to feel. There was nothing to show them that they actually lived. But that all changed when a tiny spark of light appeared in the empty cosmos. Suddenly, the Watchers realized they could see. Not only that, they realized that they are conscious beings with senses. Just like that, the spark of light woke up the Watchers from their eternal sleep.
Okay.
Naturally, the Watchers were quite annoyed at the tiny
Watchers
spark.
woke up.
Up until now, everything was peaceful and quiet. But this spark was blinding them, and it was ruining their slumber.
They're like,
When
I'm
they
trying to
drifted
sleep.
closer
Turn
to
the
inspect
light
them,
off.
The Watchers found out that the tiny spark was in fact a window into reality.
Okay.
Inside the reality, dragons of twilight, cosmic beings, and even death itself came to
Aurelion
be,
Sol,
and they roamed around the
Kindred,
empty
Bard.
space. Some, like Aurelion Sol, spread light around. they left little pieces of themselves behind, which created stars. And with a little
Okay.
help from cosmic dust, planets formed around these stars.
Okay.
The absolute majority of these newborn worlds were empty, but sometimes there was life. The one planet that we know about is Runeterra. Now, Runeterra wasn't shaped by accident. The Celestials created this world with the use of the world runes, hence the name Runeterra.
So world
But while
runes
that
were
was
used to
happening,
create the
Watchers
world
observed it all from
by
afar. It didn't take long before the
Celestials.
Celestial beings became aware of them. They knew
And
that
then the
something
Celestials
was
became
overlooking
aware
their
of the
realm,
Watchers.
and they knew it
Okay.
was more powerful than anything in their reality.
Okay.
Now, don't take this information for granted. Technically, it should be considered a theory, but it is believed that the Celestials created Runeterra to host an army of powerful beings that would defend reality against the Watchers. This was never directly confirmed, but as you'll see from the
That's
rest
kind
of
of
the
an
story,
interesting
that
theory.
is highly
They were trying to
likely
create
what
an
happened
army
here.
just to defend
Anyway, the
reality.
planet was created and the Celestials were paying close attention to its development.
Okay.
This is likely the time when Ornn, Anivia, Volibear and the Seal Sister appeared on Runeterra. It is theorized that the Celestials put them there to terraform the planet. The only thing that we get confirmed is that according to his legend, Ornn did actually shape the mountains of Freljord. However,
Okay.
after a
Ornn
mysterious
shaped
disaster,
the mountains.
the world runes that created this world were lost and scattered across the same planet.
So do I
This is
think of
likely
the world
reason
runes as
why
like
Runeterra is a
Infinity
magical
Stones, kind
world
of?
full of spirits. It is likely because the world runes slowly radiated magic into
Except
the surrounding lands.
They created the world.
Millennia
So
passed
it's a little
and
different.
life started blooming on Runeterra. First, it was Yordles, Animus and the Vastaya Shirei who started appearing on the ocean floor. But humans later
Okay.
joined them when they started covering the surface. This was very important to the Celestials. As mortals began emerging, the Celestials started fiddling with their lives. In fact, according to the Celestials, they had some kind of grand design for the mortals.
What are
The
those
story
things around
specifically avoids
Bard?
telling us what the design was.
That
but
one
at
of his
least we
abilities
know
or something?
That living beings had a purpose. The evolution of life wasn't an accident. To strengthen the
Okay.
relationship between the Celestials and the mortals of Runeterra, the Celestials did two things. First, they created star constellations. These were images that served as messages to guide mortals to their intended purpose.
Okay, so
It was an
so
easy way
Celestials
to
had an
communicate
impact
with them.
on
And second, the
life
Celestials
on the
created
world, like
Mount
they
Targon. An interesting
helped
fact is that the
them.
mountain was literally ripped from the ground. It is as if someone pinched the earth and pulled it up. That's why it is much steeper than any other mountain.
So wait, who
also,
did that?
You may notice that a lot of the mountain surface is covered in ice.
Who
Partially,
did the
it is
pinching?
because it is really cold up there. But it's also because as the mountain was being pulled up, it was also dragging lakes and rivers with it. So a
Oh,
lot of
that's
the
why they're,
ice
like,
is vertically
sideways.
frozen lakes stuck to the mountain.
Oh, that's kind of
In the
interesting.
end, Mount Targon was a pretty successful invention.
Yeah, I don't know
It
anything
served
about Mount
as a
Targon.
beacon of godly light and magic that attracted beings from all over the world.
Okay.
The more advanced mortals even formed their own civilization around its peak, which gave them a deeper connection with the celestial realm. And after
Okay.
some time, few of the most trusted individuals were elevated by the Celestials, specifically by the Celestial aspect,
So-
creating the very first Ascended beings.
Is Mount Targon just
But the
basically a
Celestials
massive
weren't the
shrine to the
only ones who were
Celestials?
strengthening their
Kind
control
of.
over the life on Runeterra. The Watchers were doing the same. They were carefully poking holes into reality, gathering any information about what the reality is, and more specifically, how can they get rid of it. The Celestials noticed
because
these
they wanna
holes in
sleep.
realities that we know as void
They're like,
rifts,
let's get rid
and
of
they
this
quickly
bright light.
moved to the next stage of controlling Runeterra. Now it was about this time when Aurelion Sol flew by and he noticed how much the life on Runeterra bloomed. And when he got closer, he noticed that all the tiny mortals looked up at him, and they worshipped him. Now this Aurelion didn't mind
So
at
is
all,
Aurelion
and he
Sol
often
bad or
came back
good?
to visit Runeterra between his journeys into the dark.
So
At
far, he
one
seems
point,
neutral.
The mortal community up on the mountain, who were now known as the Targonians, offered Aurelion Sol a crown. Aurelion, of course, appreciated the gesture of gratitude, and he happily put it on.
So he probably
But
got a
as
massive
he did
ego.
that, he willingly
Didn't
chained
he?
himself to the planet, because the
Oh, okay.
crown bound Aurelion to the will of the Ascended Targonians. Aurelion Sol was now enslaved. We don't really know if it
Wow,
was just the
okay.
Targonians who did this on their own, or if it was a plan of the celestial beings to enslave Aurelion Sol. But either way, the reason why Aurelion Sol was enslaved was because he was powerful enough to seal the Void Rifts. He was an effective weapon against the Grand Enemy.
Oh, okay.
Aurelion had a massive ego and he couldn't care less
There's
about the
his-
lives of
I told you,
mortals.
massive
so that's
ego.
why he had to be forced to properly help the reality.
Okay.
At this point, the Watchers
So he
were
closed
at their
some
limits.
of the Void,
They wanted to learn more
openings.
about Runeterra, but they were massive, and the rifts were tiny. The Watchers simply couldn't fit through. But it didn't take them too long to figure out that all they needed to do was to reach a mortal being and control it. If they corrupted something and sent it out, they could use it as
So then
a
that's
spy.
why we get these
so
void
the way
beings
the Watchers gathered
around the
more
world, huh?
information more effectively was by sending out horribly morphed beings to devour other beings and gather their information. The reason why information is so important to the
So
Watchers
is the Void
because they
the
could
ultimate
easily use it
bad
as a
because the
weapon
Void
against
is like
Runeterra.
the Watchers?
The more they learn about how living beings are constructed and what
Or am I
living
getting
beings
ahead of
are
myself
the
here?
strongest, the more powerful Voidborn creatures they can create and release through the rifts. But the Watchers realized that deconstructing and recreating beings is not the only way to win this war. Up in Freljord, they were playing a different game.
Okay.
They managed to slowly corrupt the mind of an individual that almost doomed the entire planet.
Lissandra?
Of course, we're talking about Lissandra.
Alright, okay.
Lissandra was
Hey,
one of the three
see?
sisters
I'm
that
learning.
ruled Freljord,
I'm learning,
the
everybody.
second most powerful region at that time,
Told
right
you.
after Targon. The three sisters were Lissandra, Cerilda, and Avarosa.
Cerilda
and all of them were
Avarosa.
drawn to celestial magic. Cerilda wanted to command the celestial heavens, but for her arrogance, she lost her voice to the first twilight. Avarosa witnessed the twisting dark overlooking the world, and she was deafened by its complete emptiness.
So one
and
lost their
Lissandra
voice, one
disrespected
went
the
deaf.
wild magic of Runeterra, and as her punishment, she was blinded by Volibear.
Blinded.
Together, one blind, one deaf, and one mute, the three sisters ruled Freljord. Since she was blind,
Interesting.
Lissandra had to rely on her hearing and delving into dreams. This meant that over time her hearing was so good she could hear what others could not.
Right, her other
Voices
senses
that echoed
increased.
through the fabric of reality. Unfortunately, what she didn't know is that it was the Watchers who slowly corrupted her. Years passed and Lissandra now fully trusted the Watchers. But she didn't dare tell her sisters about them. In secret, Lissandra even struck a deal with the Watchers. The Watchers would give her
Deal with the
people
devil.
near immortality. This power of immortality is what created the Iceborn, who are basically Freljordians touched by the power of the Void.
So
And
that's how
in
the
return,
Iceborns were made.
all the Watchers
So were the
wanted was a
Iceborns
safe
made
place
essentially
to
from
rest when
Lissandra?
they visit their world. To Lissandra, this was an offering she couldn't decline, and so she accepted the terms on her
Lissandra and the
sister's
Watchers,
behalf.
I guess.
More years later, when the Freljord was ready for the
Frostguard
Watchers,
Citadel.
without a warning, they started emerging from the abyss, revealing Lissandra's hidden allegiance. Unfortunately, their horrible twisted forms were not what Lissandra expected, and she realized the grave mistake she had made.
Okay.
She invited the
So is
end
that now
itself
why
to
she's
their world.
protecting it
At this
and
point,
stopping
Lissandra
them?
had two options. Let the world be consumed, or sacrifice everything she had ever had. And so, using her Iceborn powers, Lissandra managed to freeze everything and everyone who was present.
That's
killing
cool.
Cerilda and Avarosa in the process.
So,
This is how a couple of
but her
Watchers
sisters.
got frozen in the Holding Abyss, while the rest
Okay.
escaped. After this defeat, the Watchers retreated, but not without new information.
Okay. So
Many
Lissandra's
decades
still holding
later,
that
on the
back
other
right
side of
now,
the
right?
world, the war against the Void took another turn. Even though Targon had Aurelion Sol under their control, and they dealt with all the easily accessible rifts, sometimes they had to deal with smaller tears in reality that couldn't be accessed by a massive celestial dragon. That's why the Celestials had to nudge mortals to start a new empire. This time, more to the east. Under the guidance
Shurima?
of the Celestials, the new Shuriman Empire began constructing a massive disk in Nerimazeth. Using this disk, they attempted to channel celestial powers into their chosen soldiers. But the experiment failed and the disk was destroyed.
So they're trying to get celestial
Later,
powers
they made
into the
another attempt at
soldiers
this,
in
more to the
Shurima.
east. This time they constructed a
The
much
sun
bigger
disk.
sun disk that would create super soldiers capable of fighting back the Void.
So the sun
These
disk
soldiers would get many different names. God Warriors,
gives soldiers
Golden Warriors,
celestial powers.
Sunborn, but we know them as Shuriman Ascended. Here we need to
Okay,
mention
the
three
Shuriman
very
Ascended.
important individuals that play a big role in this war.
Okay.
Azir became the greatest leader of the Empire
Azir.
and the Grand Leader of the Ascended. He was loved by pretty much everyone, but
Okay.
keep in mind that he was still a human. He became Ascended much later. Nasus became the wisest of the Ascended. His knowledge of war tactics would become irreplaceable. And the third important character is Setaka. She became the war commander of the Ascended host, and she was the
I don't think I've
deadliest
heard
of
of
all
her.
the Ascended.
Okay.
As the Empire was growing and the number of their God Warriors was expanding, other nations became suppressed, and some even feared the unstoppable army of Shurima. One
Yeah,
such
if you got an
nation
army
was the
with like
Kingdom of
celestial
Ikathia.
powers, yeah.
Their leader, the infamous Mage King, had enough of cowering before their might, so he went to war against Azir. Now the Mage King knew his small kingdom of mages would not stand a chance against the Ascended, so he called upon a power greater than what the Sun Disk could offer. He called upon the Void. During the battle for Ikathia, a massive void rift consumed the kingdom, and after hundreds of years of observing, the Watchers had another chance to silence all reality.
Oh.
Using their previously
So there's a
gathered
major
knowledge,
battle
the
down here
Watchers
in
corrupted
Acacia.
everything they touched,
Acacia.
and they created new void-born abomination the world had never seen.
Whoa, that thing's
This
massive.
was a war on a scale nobody expected.
Okay.
But after many sacrifices,
So who
including
was-
Setaka, who died while being torn apart by these abominations,
Okay.
the Ascended won, but at a great cost.
Okay.
Not only was the rift in Acacia so big that even today it is still not fully sealed, but most of those who survived were permanently marked by the void. Before this battle, the Watchers have never even seen a god warrior before, so they weren't able to fully corrupt anyone. But their mark was enough to leave a tiny.
So there's still a
whispering
void
voice
down
in
there because they
everyone's
haven't been
mind.
able to close it.
Thankfully, even though their war commander Setaka was dead, Azir and Nasus remained untouched by the void, and they kept all the void-touched warriors under control.
Okay.
Of course, it didn't stay that way forever. Zerath, Azir's slave, who was also his best friend and a guide, saw him as a naive emperor. Everyone saw Azir as a kind-hearted leader, but there were still countless slaves dying under his
So
rule.
is Azir and
Now,
Nasus
secretly,
still in
Azir was
Shurima
planning to
ruling?
free all the slaves on the day of his ascension.
Or like not
It was
ruling,
meant to
but
be
they're
a
still
big
there,
surprise
yeah.
to everyone, including Zerath. But when the day arrived, Zerath became jealous of the power Azir would get. So Zerath pushed Azir from the Ascension sunlight, and he drained all the power of the Sun Disk himself. This led to Azir's death and the destruction of the
there's my
capital
answer.
city.
So
But
Azir's
what's
dead,
worse,
and this
it
is...
also left all the void-touched Ascended without a leader to keep them under control. The
Oh.
only one who could do something about this was Nasus. He was wise, but more importantly, he was not touched by the void.
Okay.
However, keeping so many corrupted Ascended in line was an impossible task even for him. And eventually, it was so dangerous, Nasus had to go into hiding. This meant that the Ascended warriors, now without a leader or purpose, and with tingling void whispers in their minds, went absolutely insane. Instead of being seen as godly beings, the Ascended slowly turned into brutal warlords. They fought each other, sometimes to gain more power, sometimes to settle their differences.
So all the Shuriman
Eventually,
Ascended...
they figured out how to control the whispers in their mind, and they created a brand new kind of magic. Blood magic, which they used to reshape and improve their bodies. Soon, the Ascended warriors were known as the Darkin, and this era would be...
Whoa! Okay, hold on. So that's the origin of the Darkin? So it comes from the Ascended Shurimans getting the Void Whispers in their head from the battle in Icathia or whatever, in Acathia. And then Azir dying by his best friend, Zerath. And then the Ascended without a leader eventually overcame the Void Whispers and became Darkin and like learned about blood magic.
Become known.
That's just wild. Okay. I know there's a video out there about the Darkin, and maybe I should learn a little bit more about them before I go into the Aatrox voice lines, but whoa.
As the Great Darkin War.
Okay.
During these times, the
Great
entire
Darkin War.
world was in conflict.
Sorry for
As
pausing.
the Darkin conquered as much land for themselves as they could. While all of this was happening, the Celestials watched it all. Their warriors who were supposed to fight back the Void were now fighting each other, and they were more dangerous to the mortals than the Watchers themselves. So the Celestials had to remove them. The simplest way to do so was to send the aspect of Twilight to Shurima. There she would teach mortals how to seal the Darkin inside their weapons. It took a couple of years, but in the end, the surviving Shurimans together with the Targonian aspect sealed all the remaining Darkin. And finally,
so the Darkin's
world
just
saw
been
peace
sealed
again.
and been
For
put
a
into
while,
weapons
anyway.
instead?
If we look back at what just happened, this entire Shuriman experiment was a massive loss for the Celestials. They wanted to have an army to fight the Void, but instead they ended up with the biggest Void Rift they have ever seen. So the Celestials needed an entirely new plan. But before they could figure something out, mortals took their fate into their own hands. Possibly in the worst way imaginable. You see, now that the Darkin were gone and the world was left in utter ruins, even the simplest man could become a king by simply scavenging whatever he could. And that's exactly what came next. The Age of Men. The first to step up was Mordekaiser. He was a brutal warlord king who
he's like
swept
undead or
across Valoran
something
and
now,
conquered
right?
the entire continent. Only when the rest of the world united against him was his dark reign ended. Fast forward a couple of years and the world was simply at war again. But this war was unlike any other.
Always at war.
Remember when the Celestials lost the world runes at the beginning of the story? Well, mortals began uncovering them. Random mages around the world held stones with the power to create worlds. It was pretty much the equivalent to holding a nuke. This sounds scary, but everything was fine as long as people were just threatening to fire the nukes. But once the first nuke was fired, the second followed, and then the third, and the fourth. While the Celestials were trying to come up with a new plan, mortals literally set the world on fire. This conflict became known as the Rune Wars.
The
Sometimes
Rune
Celestials
Wars.
managed to
That's a
calm
cool
down
name
some
for
of the
it.
conflicts.
So did that
Usually,
happen?
This was done
That
with
happened?
the help of the Dargonian
What?
aspects, or with the help of Bard. Bard is a Celestial who specifically comes down on Runeterra to take powerful magical items away from mortals, just so they wouldn't use them in another war.
Good job.
The last time we saw Bard was during the battle for Bard Mountain in Ionia, where he took away this magical egg. Later Celestials even tried to create more constellations to show people more messages. But at this point, mortal minds were too primitive, and they usually thought it was
They were too
signs of
dumb.
doom. But sometimes, even mortals helped. On the Blessed Isles, there was a cult of mages dedicated to collecting the world runes.
Okay,
They
Rise
did it to
is
hide them
from the
away
Blessed
from
Isles.
other mortals.
Okay.
But even that didn't help.
Which became
In
the Shadow
end,
Isles.
During this era, the most powerful nations were wiped out. In the east, only Noxus remained, after they wiped out their neighbors.
Okay.
Yes, this circle you see here is actually a crater. There was supposed to be another nation here.
Oh, wow.
And in the west, Demacia was built as a purely anti-magic nation.
Right.
We know that there are a couple of
Purely
nations between
anti-magic.
them. For example, the Arbor Kingdom. But we don't know much else. This is where the modern lore of League of Legends begins. So if we have a look at the world right now, the Watchers are constantly looking for a way to invade Runeterra because they are annoyed by its existence.
Okay.
The north is
They're
hiding a
annoyed.
massive void rift
They're annoyed
frozen
by
beneath
it.
the holding abyss.
Okay.
The south has a massive void rift still open there.
Right,
Not
okay.
big enough to fit a Watcher through, but big enough to spawn a void army.
Okay.
The western and eastern Valoran is at war, the entire Shuriman continent is mostly in ruins, and the Blessed Isles blew up. Only Ionia is somewhat decently holding it together, but not so much to screw them up too. Remember when I mentioned that the Celestials had mortals as a part of a bigger design? Again, the Celestials likely created mortal beings to use them all as soldiers in this galactic war.
Okay.
Well, whatever purpose mortals were supposed to have, it is far beyond the Celestial control now.
So this helped a lot.
So now,
I think this really did help a lot.
What happens next? Well, the main story can go a number of ways. We can learn more about the world runes through the vault in Demacia. Or maybe the Watchers will try to get through the rift in the north. Or the Darkin will try to make a comeback.
I don't think any of that's happened because I haven't heard that.
Again. Riot created a playground where they can do a lot of different things. Just remember, it really doesn't matter where you begin to read. Every champion and every story
so again, this is a little old, so there's probably a lot of
lost.
information
If
or
you
new
ask
things
me,
that have happened.
Start with the stories found on Silas's page. He's a great champion for entering the new lore. He will get you right into the newest conflict. And right after that, maybe have a look at Udyr. I think he will surprise you too. But no matter what you decide to do, just have fun and go for whatever you are interested in.
I only know a little bit about
the days
Silas
of bad lore
and like
are
Lux
gone,
and Garen.
And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Hey, did you know that we have...
Alright, folks. That was a good like intro to the world itself and like how it was created, because I didn't know majority of this. So okay, so it started off with the Watchers, right? And then like there was a we'll just call it a big bang or whatever. And then the Watchers are kind of like, I'm trying to sleep, bro. Turn the light off, please. Thank you, right? And then Celestials, again, the theory is that they wanted to start creating an army to protect against the Watchers. How were the Celestials formed? I think I may have missed that. Or the Celestials have always existed? I'm not quite sure. And then, you know, things happen on this world. Aurelion Sol is there, like, enslaved onto the ground. And is that currently where he's still at? Is Mount Targon? Or is he not there anymore? And he's, like, helping fight the Void Rifts or whatever. And then what happens? So Shurimans start getting celestial powers and become Ascended. And I did not know that the Shuriman Ascended became Darkin. You guys will have to let me know about how does Aatrox become a dark? Like, is Aatrox still around as a Darkin? Because according to this, all of the Darkin's gone. Because of Zoe, right? Zoe taught them how to get rid of it. It's very interesting. And then the Void like portal in the bottom, at the bottom in Icathia is still there. Like I remember I've watched some more recent videos, and that Void location is still there in the south. So it's very interesting that they haven't been able to close it yet. Nasus is in hiding still, unless that's confirmed something else, like if he's come out of hiding. I thought I read something about Azir, or hearing something about Azir being resurrected. I'm probably wrong about that. But yeah, so cool. So Bard is just still, you know, out here protecting people. Zoe's out here teaching people. A lot of Noxus and Demacia are at war. Now, I've been told, or maybe you guys may know, I'm wondering if there's a little bit more information how the Blessed Isles became the Shadow Isles. So like I feel like not everybody exactly knows. It just kind of blew up and became the Shadow Isles. There's probably like rumors or theories about it. Maybe there's a video I could look into about that. So very cool. There was some frail. Oh yeah, Lissandra. She's currently still up there, right? Like holding it back. Her two sisters are also frozen within the void thing that was going on up here, but she's got to keep it frozen, right? Or like it could destroy Runeterra. So very interesting story about Lissandra up there. I know Lissandra is like pretty like high up there in terms of the power levels of her character. So very cool. All right, folks, that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to check out some more reaction videos to look at for Necrit and anything that involves lore and things like that. We'll try to get into them and just learn more about just the overall like big events that occurred in Runeterra. So like I've been told about we didn't learn anything about the Noxian chemical warfare stuff, but I know they used chemicals or something. Like I'm sure there's a huge breakdown, maybe not in a video, but in like some of the comics and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think of this video. Let me know anything I may have missed or should know in the comments as well. You guys have always been doing great at leaving comments and letting me know new information that I should definitely know about the League of Legends story. All right, everybody, let's get into the second video here. Official timeline of League of Legends. This one's about 24 minutes.
If you've been around the channel for a while, you know that this isn't the first time that we are making a timeline for League of Legends.
Oh,
we made the first one before Universe even existed. During these dark times, we had to look for the
This video is also 3 years old.
And in the worst case, we had to snoop around the internet because Riot hid their stories on separate websites. And on top of
maybe
that,
we'll get another one soon. I don't know.
Have canon story. Then we made the second timeline. That one was released after the Universe launched. There, at least, we had the base idea of what the story of League of Legends even is. But because we made that video very close to the release of Universe, most of the stories were not fleshed out. And over the following months, some of the details in the story changed. And suddenly,
Swain.
that timeline was full of mistakes.
I need to learn about Swain still. I know I've mentioned
and
that.
Hopefully the last video on the timeline of League of Legends. That's because today Riot released the Realms of Runeterra book, which is an official summary of the entire story of the Realms of
that's pretty
Legends.
cool.
But more importantly, this book also contains the official timeline of this story.
Oh, okay.
And that is what I'm going to show you today.
Sweet, let's do it.
So no more guessing, no more assumptions. What you are about to hear today is set in stone. And the purpose of this video is to give us a guide for the future. So whenever in the future we will need to know when the historical events happened, this video will
I want to know like these big major events that occurred in history.
Let's have a look at the thing the lore community has been
and what
waiting
characters
for
were involved and stuff.
The official timeline of Runeterra. Before we start, it is important to note that just like we say that something happened before Christ, because that is how we mark year 0, on Runeterra the foundation of Noxus is year 0. I will talk about it more when we get to it on the timeline. But just remember that when something happened before the year 0, we say that it happened before Noxus.
Really? Why do we make Noxus year 0? That's
interesting. The official timeline doesn't show the very beginning of everything. But we know that something happened because we got proofs in the stories. So, countless eons ago,
here we go.
Runeterra popped into existence.
Here we go, here we go.
This was probably around the time when Aurelion started spreading stars around the universe. In fact, the earliest point in the story we have is the beginning of time. This was mentioned in the story Twilight of the Gods, when the Ascended warriors rode on the dragons of Twilight to the beginning of times. This was a form of entertainment to the Ascended. Whenever they wanted, they could just jump on the dragons of Twilight and watch the beginning of everything.
Dragons of Twilight.
Either way, that
what is the first lands? Minus 9,000.
With this,
negative
we have the entire story of the Watchers, where the Watchers are these creatures from another realm. And as stars and planets started appearing,
they're just trying to turn the light off to sleep.
The Watchers, which are these creatures sitting in darkness, suddenly saw light in the distance. And
I mean, I kind of don't blame them, okay?
In the darkness and they didn't want to be blinded by annoying light, they decided to silence it. That is the reason why the Watchers are trying to consume our world. They were sleeping in the darkness since the beginning of anything. And when Runeterra popped into existence, it was like an annoying shining light to them. So if anything, we understand are invading the privacy of the Watchers. Anyway, this sets up the very beginning of the planet. But now, let's jump onto the actual
War of the
Three
Sisters, we know what that is.
9,000 years before Noxus, we have the very first Runeterran story. This era is known as simply the First Lands, which of course is an ancient name for Ionia. So it's not surprising to know where this story takes place. This era is entirely new to us, so pay attention.
Oh,
The
interesting.
description in the book reads, across the island continent known as Ionia,
Yeah.
a great war raged between mortals and a race of sky giants. Only by the intervention of the Vastaya Shirei, legendary beings of immense power, existing in both material and spirit realms simultaneously, was victory eventually won. This is interesting
Sky
because
giants.
we have never heard about the sky giants before.
Yeah, who are the
although
sky
they were
giants?
teased almost years before this book. If you have a look at Universe, you may notice these images with giant swords that have no meaning. Well, they have no meaning because people forgot where these giant swords came from.
Interesting.
And the book actually has a special description for this.
Is this my
exact
first time
image.
hearing about
This
sky
is what it
giants
says.
from Ionia?
Titans of the past. It is certain
Titans of
Ionia
the
has
past.
much longer and richer history than any living soul could claim to know.
Yeah, okay.
Indeed, in the more remote and mountainous highlands, the landscape is still littered with evidence of great wars from ages past. But
That's
instead
very
of
cool.
clearing the ruins,
Yeah, like
the
if I made a
Ionians chose to
character
respect
in this
what
MMO
remains,
for Riot,
even if
I would.
they no longer fully
Ionia.
understand what it represents.
It's just like the
So
place would be so
This is a
cool.
proof that the very first Runeterran story was a war with the giants.
Okay.
Which is a war we unfortunately know nothing about.
Huh.
One
Okay.
thing to note is that even for TFT, Riot is using these giant swords
I
for
play
the
that-
Ionian
I
maps.
play that game,
So it
guys.
is clear that Riot might have future plans.
So it's
for
in their
this story.
artwork. Okay.
But now, let's move on.
All right. War of the Three Sisters.
8,000 years before Noxus.
We know this is
War of
Lissandra
the
and her
Three
two sisters.
The description of this event tries to set everything on the right track, because previously
Okay.
the story of Freljord had some plot holes. This is what the description says. After they defeated the old gods of the north,
Okay.
a feud developed between the sisters Avarosa, Cyrilda, and Lissandra,
Mm-hmm.
and quickly escalated into open conflict. The final battle was fought at the gates of Lissandra's citadel, where she sacrificed many
artwork's
allies
really
to
cool.
entomb her enemies in true ice. This
Reminds me of
suggests
something like
that
from
the
Dark
Watchers
Souls.
got frozen in the Holding Abyss first, and a couple of years after that, the sisters turned against each other. It
Okay.
wasn't a massive battle that included all three sisters and the Watchers on top of that, like we previously thought.
Oh,
In
okay.
reality, according to the book, it was two separate battles.
I should get this
Despite
book.
the fact that
honestly.
Lissandra's bio still
I would love to
mentions everyone
own
being
this book.
frozen in one battle. But then again, the story has these plot holes only in Lissandra's version of the story. And that might be happening
Okay.
because Lissandra is trying to hide the truth. Originally,
And
with
Lissandra's
this
blind,
information,
right?
I
Which is
wanted
why
to
she's covering
retell
her
the
eyes.
entire Freljordian story as accurately as possible. But it is obvious that Riot has the freedom to tell us more about the Watchers in the future.
Cool.
And with Lissandra being a massive liar, if in the future Riot expanded the story and altered the
Yeah,
timeline,
she seems like she's
it would
quite
invalidate
bad,
this
but she's
entire
also
video.
like
So instead,
also
just
holding
remember
back
that
the
official timeline
Watchers.
mentioned that the sisters defeated the Watchers before they got into conflict.
Okay, so they
But
defeated
now,
the Watchers
let's move
together first
6,000
before they got into
years
conflict.
before
Got it.
Noxus.
A westward migration. This is
Of
to
course, we
Noxus?
know this story very well,
Or-
because it was explained when Kiana was released. This is where the advanced
The
people
Ishtal.
of Ishtal spread
Okay.
around the world. Some people migrated to the Blessed Isles, some
Okay.
to the Buhuru Islands, and some to
Buhuru Islands.
Targon, the deserts of Shurima, and to Valorant.
Okay, just everything
In
west.
short,
Okay.
nearly all humans on Runeterra come from the Ishtali region. This is what the description
Interesting.
says. Bringing all their ancient knowledge and wisdom with them, settlers from the forgotten lands of the distant east reached the shores of Shurima and Valoran. In time, their
Okay.
descendants would come to rule the greatest
Valoran's by
civilization
Noxus.
Runeterra has ever known. Notice how the description simply mentions settlers from the forgotten lands of the distant east, and how it says that they reached the shores of Shurima and Valoran. Now, Shurima and Valoran are the entire continents.
Yeah.
So the story almost suggests that even the people of Ishtal don't come from Ishtal. It suggests that even the
Everybody
people of
comes from
Ishtal
east.
came from somewhere further east. What
Interesting.
I'm trying to say is that maybe there is a place further east that is not even on the map.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
that is where people came from.
A whole nother
They landed
content-
on the
or
shores
continent.
of Shurima and
That'd be
Valoran,
crazy.
and from there they spread around.
Okay.
Next, we have 5,000
The
years
rise of the
before
God
Noxus.
Warriors. So the Ascended,
The
right?
rise of the
In
God
Shurima.
Warriors. Guided by the divine aspect
the
of
Sun Disk.
Targon in preparation
And
for
Targon.
some unknown future war, the ancient Shurimans used the Sun Disk at Neremazeth to create the first Ascended.
Okay.
These noble beings were worshipped as living gods,
Okay.
and the empire they forged would endure for millennia. This confirms
Okay.
that we were right in our previous assumptions that it was the Targonian aspects and possibly even the Celestials themselves who showed Shurimans how to create the Ascended.
Okay.
The first Ascended were made in Neremazeth. However, for unknown reasons, these early experiments with the Ascended
So
failed,
started in
and
Neremazeth
Neremazeth
and then
was
moved
turned
to the
into
right to the
ruins.
Sun Disk.
So instead,
and
a couple
Shurima.
of years later, A better and greater sun disk was built in the middle of
It was the
Shuriman
beta.
Desert,
It was the beta
which
test
would
of the
become
Ascended,
foundation
and
of
it
the
failed. You
future
know,
capital
or is
city
the
of the
you know,
Shuriman Empire.
yeah, it was the beta
The
test.
description mentioned that the Ascended were created for unknown future war, which of course
Unknown
we
future
know
war
would become
against the
Great
Watchers?
Void War.
Yeah, against- okay.
Years before Noxus, Icathia rebelled against Shurima.
Icathia rebels
This
against
is when the
Shurima.
story
Okay.
called Where Icathia Once Stood happened.
This is where the
During
void
this
is.
story, the Icathian kingdom requested to stay independent from the Shuriman Empire. Obviously, the Emperor of Shurima denied this request.
Right.
And
Oh,
as an
okay.
answer,
So that's
he
why.
sent his ascended god warriors to reclaim the rebellion.
So Icathia
kingdom.
wanted to be
And so,
independent.
because Icathians knew they wouldn't be able to beat the god warriors,
Huh.
they called upon a different kind of power.
Oh,
to
so
save
they
them.
called the void.
Or, as the
Oh.
description puts it, in a desperate bid to succate from the tyranny of the Empire,
Oh.
Icathia unleashed the void.
Because they knew they couldn't take on the god
Their own
warriors, the
capital city
Ascended.
was instantly destroyed.
Okay.
The land tainted and corrupted beyond all recognition. Even the mighty Ascended host could do little to combat this horror.
Okay.
And Shurima was forced to abandon Icathia for good.
Interesting.
2000
And that
years
portal's
before
still
Noxus,
open.
Azir's
I
failed
believe.
ascension. This is when Xerath betrayed Azir. Some could argue
Okay.
that Azir wasn't really betrayed. He just never told Xerath that he wanted to free all slaves. Azir wanted to keep it as a surprise which would be announced after his ascension. But since he never told Xerath, Xerath thought that Azir was as cruel as all his ancestors.
Oh, that makes it
And
seem
so,
like it's
Xerath decided to push
terrible.
Azir away
Like,
from the
he
ritual,
betrayed
and he
Azir
absorbed
even
the
though
power
Azir
of
was
the
doing the
Sun
right
Disk
thing,
himself,
or was going
forcing
to.
it to transcend him beyond what even the Ascended are, and destroying the Empire in the process.
Okay.
The description of these events says, denied godhood by a base act of treachery, the last Shuriman Emperor, Azir, was lost, along with the Sun Disk itself. The people,
Azir
filled
and the
with
Sun
fear and
Disk
sorrow,
were destroyed.
looked for the remaining Ascended to protect them.
Okay.
Something to note here. Notice that there is a 500-year gap between these events and the story of Icathia. Because Azir was just a normal man during these events. That means that it wasn't Azir who led the Empire into war with Icathia.
Oh, okay.
It was likely one of his ancestors.
Okay, so he came later.
550 years before Noxus. The Great Darkin War. The last sentence of the
I don't know
previous
anything
era
about
mentioned
Darkins.
that after Azir died and the Sun Disk was destroyed, people turned to the Ascended
Just that the
warriors
Ascended
to
became
protect
them?
And that was the foundation of the Great Darkin War. For what would a warlord be without an army? Bereft of purpose and scarred by what they had endured in
Is that
facing
Aatrox
the
on the
void,
right?
many of the Ascended became twisted in body and mind, naming themselves Darkin and raising
Okay.
hordes of mortal warriors to conquer the world.
Okay.
Eventually, the aspects who had
is
inspired their
very-
creation were forced to intervene.
This interests
imprisoning
me
the
a lot.
Darkin
The Ascended
within their
turning into
own
the
accursed
Darkin.
weapons. In other words,
That's why they have these
after
crazy
Azir's
weapons.
betrayal, the Ascended war host was left without a leader, and with Icathia defeated, they were left without a purpose.
Okay.
Combine that with the fact that the minds of the Ascended were already touched by the Void, and suddenly they went crazy and started hungering for power. Thus,
Interesting.
the Ascended became the Darkin.
So it was like a
At
combination
this
of
point, the
Ascended
situation
and
was out of
Void.
control, and the living
became
weapons which the
equal
Darkonian
Darkin.
aspects created to fight the Void were now terrorizing humanity.
Yeah.
And so, using the power of the moon, the aspects were forced to intervene and imprison the Darkin
Okay.
inside their own weapons.
So the aspects.
Notice
Oh,
the
imprison
symbology.
them inside their
the
own
Darkin were
weapons.
technically created using the power of the sun, reflecting in the Sun Disk. At the end, as we learned from the story Twilight of the Gods, they were sealed using the power of the moon. So the sun and the moon are the primal
Lunari and
forces.
Solari.
They are the beginning and the end.
Interesting.
400 years before Noxus.
Okay.
Reign of the Iron Revenant.
Iron
This
Revenant.
is when the story of Mordekaiser happens.
Oh, okay.
I'll
The
read the
Mordekaiser
official
arc.
description first, and then I will fill in the gaps. Deceiving the mages who had resurrected him, the warlord San Uzal was reborn as Mordekaiser, and set about conquering the mortal realm from his immortal bastion.
He's just a
Though
big
it
baddie.
took almost 3 centuries, he was eventually defeated by an alliance of Noxide tribes, who
Oh, okay.
inherited the empire he had built. I
Interesting.
need to add 2 things here. First of all, before San Uzal died, he conquered Valoran and forged an empire in blood and death. He did this because he believed that if he lived a glorious life in the name of the gods of death, he would be invited to their table in the afterlife.
And is that
But
what happened?
after he died, he learned that the afterlife is empty.
Oh.
This angered him so much that he learned how to speak the language
Whoops.
of the dead, also known as Oknun, by observing other damned souls.
Huh.
Then he reached out to the world of the living, in
And then
hopes
they
to bait some
resurrected him,
sorcerer into
but then he
bringing this
betrayed them.
legendary warlord back to life.
Right.
And with a bit of patience, that is exactly what happened. Mordekaiser's
Mordekaiser's a badass villain, though, huh?
After this, the description happens. Son Uzal was brought back to life as Mordekaiser and he started a new conquest of the world. However, at the end of the description it says, he was eventually defeated by an alliance of the Noxai tribes. But of course, we know that it wasn't just a bunch of barbarian tribes who grouped together to take him down. In reality, Mordekaiser was also betrayed by his own people inside the Immortal Bastion.
Oh, okay.
One
his
of
own
which
people.
was LeBlanc herself.
Oh, LeBlanc.
Anyway,
okay.
as the story mentioned, almost 300 years passed. And now we are getting
then
to
Ruination?
25 years before Noxus. The Ruination. A terrible accident occurred in the arcane vaults beneath the city of Helya, hidden away on the Blessed Isles.
Oh,
with the barrier between the mortal and the spirit realms shattered, the souls of the dead were trapped in eternal torment within the coiling black mist.
Okay, this is what I wanted to learn about, the Blessed Isles becoming the Shadow Isles.
By all right-thinking mortals.
Interesting, okay.
Of course, everyone knows that the Ruination was caused by the ruined king. So about 25 years before Noxus is when the story of Callista and Hecarim happened.
Okay.
And this takes us to 13 years before Noxus. The Rune Wars.
That makes sense.
With Helya lost,
Rune Wars.
dangerous magical artifacts soon began to
Infinity
find their
War?
way into the wrong hands. On the fields outside Com, the renowned mage Tyrus and his apprentice Rise witnessed the first devastating attack in the Rune Wars. A sight that would haunt Rise's nightmares for the rest of his unnaturally long life. In other words, the story of Rise actually happened after the Ruination. Which makes sense because Master Tyrus, who was responsible for taking care of the world runes, was from the Blessed Isles.
I know Rise is pretty
since
powerful
the Blessed
because
Isles
he can like
exploded,
handle the rune
it makes
stones.
sense that suddenly protecting the world runes was harder.
Or world
that might be
runes.
one of the reasons why people around the world started discovering the world runes.
Okay.
Either way, the description mentions Com, which is a place mentioned on the map of Runeterra.
You would think
can't
Bard
find
wouldn't
the
want
place
people
there,
having the
but
world
it was
runes.
mentioned in Rise's story. In fact, it is this exact image. The reason why you can't find it on the map is because it is speculated that this entire
Yeah,
crater
so
in
I
the
saw
middle of the
that
sea
Necrit made a
is this
comment about
place.
this. It's
There
not
used to be
from
a massive chunk
it's
of
not from
land
Rise
there,
that
but
this
as the story of
occurred.
Rise described, the mountains got evaporated.
He made
and
a
the ocean
comment
rushed
about it
into
on
the
this
land.
video.
That's where this giant hole comes from. The former birthplace.
So what
of
he's saying
Rise.
right now isn't
And
true.
finally, we are getting to year
It's
zero.
not like confirmed or anything.
Noxus endures.
Okay.
The
So here we
Rune
go.
Wars escalated across most of the known world. After a
So now we're
decade
at
of
0-0.
almost apocalyptic battle, the last of the Noxai were forced to retreat inside the Immortal Bastion for shelter from the magical fallout.
Okay.
When they finally emerged, the land beyond has been ravaged, but they survived. They were alloyed as a single people. No longer Noxai, but Noxus. And have marked their calendar from this day ever since.
Okay. So that's the
story
start
here reveals something interesting.
of the year.
Just like some
one.
people fled to the forests of Demacia, decades before Demacia was even a kingdom, because the forest itself was able to protect them from magic. People who are on the other side of the continent wouldn't be able to make it there. And so instead, they hid inside the Immortal Bastion.
You know, I feel
And
like
because the Immortal
Riot
Bastion
could
was
definitely
empowered by
add
the
just
dark
more
magic of
continents and
Mordekaiser,
isles and stuff
it's
to
not a
the
surprise
east.
to know
Like
that
this
the
world
Immortal
could just
Bastion
get
could
bigger
also
and
protect
bigger.
them from magic.
Like I feel like we're
So
not
if you
done.
think about it, Demacia and Noxus
Like they can
started
just
during
go
the same
east,
event.
go west, whatever,
However, it
make
would
more
take Demacia
continents.
much longer to get actually kickstarted.
Build your
which
world
takes us to the
even
year
bigger.
292.
Like if they have
The Demacian
infinite amount of
crown.
content they could make
Far
here.
to the west, the nation
What is this?
founded
The
by the
Demacian
great
crown.
champion Orlon crowned its first king. Originally settled by the refugees of the Rune Wars, it was declared that Demacia would be a
Refugees
sanctuary from magic.
of
now
the
and
Rune Wars
forevermore.
became
Of course,
Demacia.
if you want to know more about Orlon, the person who founded Demacia, you can read the story
Okay.
of Poppy, who is now wielding the Hammer of Orlon. Interestingly
Okay.
enough, the foundation of Demacia is also tied to other stories. For example, this means that it was around the year 300 when the story of Gale and Morgana happened.
Okay.
Next we get to the year 349.
Noxus becomes an imperial
Noxus
power.
becomes an imperial power. After a series of forced annexations and the fall of the Draken Gate, the strength of Noxus grew to match its ambitions. The noble
Noxus
houses
becomes
swore,
really powerful
though
at
it
this
might
point,
take
okay.
1,000 years, to unify all nations of Runeterra beneath a
I
single
feel like the
banner,
Noxus and
elected a
Demacia would
grand
obviously be
general
like
to
your
lead
two
their
like
war
main
host to victory.
cities,
This
and like
part
a
is super
and then
interesting,
MMO.
because this means that Noxus was founded with the exact same philosophy as Demacia. Demacia was also founded with the idea of having a shelter for all races of Runeterra.
Yeah.
But as time went on, that
They don't like
idea
mages,
corroded.
though.
But Noxus stuck with it. To this
Okay,
day,
so Noxus is
still
still welcome
the
to
most
everybody.
diverse nation on Runeterra.
That's cool.
And that's because they stuck with their base philosophy.
Cool. Yeah.
Then we have the year 772.
Tragedy on the
Tragedy
river
on the
belt.
river belt. Merchant clans controlling the trade routes between Valorant and Shurima accelerated construction of vast accessways and conveyors. However, excavations of these sun gates undermined the ancient port of Zone, plunging whole portions
this
of
is
the city
Piltover and
into the
Zone?
lightless caverns beneath. In other words, Before the year 772, the only way to transport goods by ship from east to west would be to go around the entire continent, because the path through the continent was blocked by rocks right here, which is where the ancient city of Zon was.
Okay.
Back then, Zon was a Shuriman city, and its ancient name was Oshrava Zon. However, the rich people realized that if
So
they
this
make
became a
massive
place
hole
because of
through
like
the
trade
rocks,
and things.
instead of going around
I mean,
the
it makes
entire
sense.
continent, they could go through the rocks and pass between the eastern and western Valorant with ease. And so the construction began.
Yeah.
And the merchants of Zone started digging a hole.
Oh, look at
through
the
rocks.
bridges and
but
stuff.
because it was taking far
That's
too
cool.
long to do that, they decided to accelerate the digging. And so they used explosives. The issue is that they miscalculated how many of these explosives
they screwed
needed.
up, didn't they?
And the explosion was so big, half of the city sank into the waters below.
Oh.
This disaster was so massive, thousands of people died that day.
Oh no,
and
dude.
the city was
Okay.
effectively split into two halves.
Okay.
Zone remained as it was below, albeit being mostly in ruins.
So now Arcane is
But
a little
above
different,
that,
right?
A new city was born. It was called
Like,
Bilgewater.
that's
for it was now
not-
sitting over the river
Is that
Bill.
canon to Arcane?
Next, we have the year 787.
I know they're technically separate,
With
right?
more and more bad-draggled fortune
Alright,
seekers
Bilgewater.
washing up on their shores. Missionaries from the Buhuru granted these Pale-Lengi outsiders refuge in the southern island base.
Okay.
While there were many years of cultural confusion, even including the name of the Serpent Isles,
I don't know
this
anything about
settlement would
Bilgewater except that it's
eventually
just like a
grow into the
pirate
bustling
place,
port
I feel
city
like.
in its own right. In other words, the Buhuru were these advanced
me of, like,
religious
Sea of Thieves
people
or
that
something.
came here from Ishtar,
Pirates of the
just
Caribbean.
like they came to the Blessed Isles. But as more and more outsiders, who they called Pale-Lengi, came to their islands, most of them coming from Piltover and Zone and usually seeking some form of treasures,
Oh, okay.
the Buhuru gave
Oh,
them their
well, yeah,
own
see?
island where they could do whatever they wanted. And over time, as more and more people came, a settlement was built there, and that was eventually turned into Bilgewater.
Okay.
Next, we
Got
have
it.
the year 980.
The invasion of Ionia
The
from
invasion of
Noxus,
Ionia.
right?
Following many years of scouting and preparation,
Noxus, come on,
Grand
leave Ionia
General
alone.
Darkwill ordered a large-scale occupation of
Yep.
Ionia by Noxian forces.
So
Although
they still
initially
own a
met
little
with
bit, though, right?
resistance, the Warhost's brutal advancement across the
Yeah, those
provinces
three little
soon
parts.
gave rise to fierce retaliations from various Ionian militias, which became more
Hmm.
organized after the infamous Battle of the Placidium. Of course, everyone knows the invasion of Ionia. The story
I
of
don't.
most Ionian champions and a lot of Noxian champions as well explain this.
Except Master
So if you
Yi
wanna learn
stopped
about
a
what
lot of them,
happened
right?
here, Irelia is the centerpiece.
Aurelia.
But other interesting champions include Riven, Kayn, Master Yi, and even Zed and Shen.
Okay.
But of course, there is one more champion.
But they
who
held
changed
Noxus
because of
off.
these events. And that champion takes us to the last point on this
Oh,
timeline.
Swain. Okay.
Year 989.
Interesting.
Jericho Swain seizes Noxus. In
So
spite
he's
of
in.
his dishonorable
He's
discharge
leading
from the
Noxus
military,
right now.
Former General Swain enacted a coup with the Noxian capital, disposing and killing Boran Darkwill. In
Okay.
less than a year, Swain had ended the occupation of Ionia, vastly reduced the influence of the noble houses, and established the Triferx Council to govern the empire.
Okay.
Of course, the Triferx
So Swain's
is
taken
the
over.
new way Noxus is led.
But he's
Instead
got
of
this,
having one
demon
grand
in his
general
arm,
who
right?
acts as a tyrant and who could also be easily corrupted.
Demon of
Swain
Secrets?
made it a law that Noxus would always be led by 3 people,
Oh,
each representing
hey,
one
good,
pillar
cool.
of Noxus.
Oh.
Vision, Might, and Guile. That
Oh,
way,
Darius
with
and
3
LeBlanc.
leaders in charge, Noxus could never be corrupted.
That.
And this
I
takes
thought
us to the
Swain was a
present
villain.
days, because even
I thought he
though
was a
this is the
bad
end
guy,
of the
but it
official
sounds like he did a
timeline,
good thing.
There are stories that are happening right now.
So Silas
The
is
biggest
rebellion.
one is the story of Silas.
We
who
know
is currently
he, like,
pushing the
rebels
story of
against
Demacia
Demacia.
forward in the present days. But other present
like, there's
stories
whole
also include
Lux
the story
and
of
Garen.
Udyr and Volibear,
I don't
the
know
one
about
where
Udyr and
Udyr faced the
Volibear.
Ursine. But also we have the stories of Riven and Yasuo, called Confessions of a Broken Blade.
That one is
and
like-
even Jin's Escape. Because remember,
I don't know
even
about
though
Jin's
the story
Escape.
of Jin, Zed, and Yasuo
I know a
starts
little bit
before the
about
invasion of
Riven
Ionia,
and Yasuo and
between then
Yone.
and now, Jin was imprisoned and then he was freed. So during
Okay.
the present days, Zed and Shen are still hunting down Jin. But that is
Okay.
it for the official timeline of Runeterra.
So this is
Finally,
3
there
years
should be
old,
no
so there's
mistakes, and this
obviously
video
more
should
things
serve as
here.
a guide for years to come.
This is really cool. I want to
strongly
get
doubt
the
that Riot
book
will
that
change
he
the
used
timeline
to
in
make
the
this
future.
timeline.
If anything, they may add to the timeline. As I said at the beginning, the only confusing bit
Yeah, I
is
feel
the
like we're
following.
only gonna go
We are not
to
exactly
the
sure
present
about
time or the
chronology
future. I
of
don't
when
think
the bridge in Holding
there'd be
Abyss was
anything
built,
added to the
when
past.
the Watchers were sealed, and when Lissandra fought against her sisters.
Mm-hmm.
That entire part is still confusing, because Lissandra keeps
okay.
screwing with the stories.
We might get more
Again,
info on it, though.
Lissandra is a known liar. She is rewriting the stories to hide the truth.
That's interesting.
So maybe the story is confusing. on
Lissandra does
purpose.
interest me
But
quite a
if
bit.
anything, we should trust the book. After all, the book was
Right.
written as a summary of all the canon lore. So
Okay.
we can assume that the Watchers became a threat, The sisters defeated them, they learned that Lissandra was favoring the Watchers, and then Avarosa and Serilda turned on Lissandra. That should be the canon version.
Okay.
But with that is going to be
Cool.
it for this video.
I feel like I learned so much, guys. Like, I
wanna
know
talk
the
about
whole
when it comes
history
to
of
this book.
Runeterra
Because
now.
believe it or not, but there might be some hidden teasers of a new champion.
I just don't know
And because I
everything
was given
about
an early
every
copy, I had some
character.
time to look into it. But more on that in a future video.
There's too many
For
characters.
Now, thank you so much for being
Okay,
here.
no,
and I will see you
that's a lie.
next
There aren't
time.
too many characters. Okay, so let's pause it here. Basically, I want to say, great video by Necrit again. These always break it down so easily. The thing is, so like I'm saying, so I understand the history. Like I'm understanding, okay, Runeterra is created, you know, Big Bang style or whatever. The Celestials made the world with the world runes, right? And then all these little battles or wars, and then Lissandra and everything like that. The thing I just don't know, and it makes sense. So there's like over 145 characters, right? I don't know the exact number right now. Basically, I just don't know everything that every character has been involved in, because I can estimate. So like when he just mentioned the Ionia thing, the War of Ionia, he mentioned a few characters. I don't know exactly what all those characters did. Like he says Irelia's key to it. I couldn't tell you what Aurelia did to fight off Noxus in that war, right? I know Master Yi used like a technique that wasn't allowed, or is like a super powerful technique, but then Noxus bombed all the people that learned that technique. So Master Yi's like the only one left that knows how to use it. Stuff like that, right? I know little things, but I don't know a lot of the character specific things. And it's just going to take time. It's just going to take time for me to learn about what every character has done. But these last two videos were a great way to learn just the history of the world and the history of like the major battles. It seems like Noxus is like your centerpiece kind of, and so is Shurima and the Sun Disk stuff. But yeah, so the Darkin information is really good. I think I'm good to go into some of the Darkin lore now. That's what I'm going to dive into next with I know Aatrox, and then him and like Pantheon fight. I've been hinted at that, or I've been told that. So very interested in the Darkin stuff. I think I'm gonna move on to that stuff. Maybe I'll dive in a little bit deeper into the Ionian stuff, or the Void, this Akathia battle. Maybe I don't know if there's a little bit more info there. I don't really need to know much more about Bilgewater and stuff like that. Oh, I need to dive more into the Silas, Lux, and Garen story. So I know, like, Garen and Lux are like best friends, right? And Lux becomes a mage, and you know Garen's against mages. But then Silas and Lux are like working together, but then Silas betrays her or something like that. And it's in that one Warriors video, I believe, or one of those music videos. But I just need to dive into that story a little bit more. Probably read about Silas specifically, because I don't know anything about Silas. So those are just some examples of like more character-driven things that I think I need to learn about. And you guys have been super helpful with the comments. Please just keep those comments coming. I literally read like almost all of them. It's just like I read all of them, and then by the time I've read all of them, I've read like, you know, 100 comments, and I can't retain all the information. So keep all the comments coming. Please like the video if you guys liked the reaction or watched even just a little bit. I appreciate it. You guys have been super supportive of my reactions. I think it's been great that you guys have been helping me. And you know what? Subscribe to the channel if you liked at least 2 of the reaction videos. You know, you might as well, because I have a bunch more reaction videos coming along the way. And we're going to react to other stuff other than League. If you like other games, we're going to react to probably some Valorant stuff and some other games like that, like Apex or something. So who knows? Stay tuned for more reactions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.